Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be tuning in from. Welcome to episode 84 of our LinkedIn live stream. Very, very pleased to be joined by an actual Veeam customer. Alec Sadanichi joins us from Staples. I won't ruin the introduction for you. I'll let you describe yourself, a little bit about your company. We do have a breakdown slide on that and actually where you're joining in or tuning in from because it's not stateside, is it?
Yes, that's correct. Well, first of all, Dave, I'm really pleased to be here, so thanks a lot for the invitation. Let me give a brief explanation. Staples Solutions, it's a European entity, and we carved out from the Staples Inc. a good few years ago. I guess that everybody who is joining this call, they would like to be a little bit pragmatic. So they want to know what kind of an environment we are dealing with, what are our numbers. So that's why I prepared that short slide just to explain you how it looks like. So we're talking about more than 1,000 virtual machines, a lot of physical servers. We're a big fan of hyperconverged solutions. We do have around 20 branch offices and data centers, and we're talking about 250 terabyte of actual data. And for all of that, we're using Veeam because around 5 years ago, we decided to consolidate to one backup platform, and that was our selection. Also, we are doing some stuff on cloud infrastructure. We do have a lot of Office 365 users. For 1,000, well, okay, maybe for some companies it's not a lot, but at least we would like to think that it's quite a significant amount of people. We do Teams backup, we do, well, our OneDrive, SharePoint, you name it. A lot of interesting things in Azure, plus our, server environment, services, Kubernetes, and so on. So I'm not sure, maybe I'm talking too fast, Dave, maybe you do have any specific questions.
I liked when we had a chat the other week and you mentioned backup is kind of a curious topic. And you were kind of saying, when it works, probably nobody knows, or if they know, they just assume, well, this must be easy, right? Because it just seems to be happening. But then there's the other side. Sometimes it's not always easy, or sometimes it doesn't always work, does it?
Oh, well, that's absolutely correct. And, when backup works, we are in a very good position. Everybody is happy, but people tend not to notice it. And when actually the problem happens, when we are facing some problems. So that's why, for us as an IT, we are really aiming at keeping business up. And it's crucial for us to make sure that there is no loss of data. So we are trying to ensure it in different ways. And we are really satisfied how Veeam is helping us because we were trying to, phase out all the problems with reliability and corrupted data. Now it's perfectly fine. We achieved it. We wanted to do cloud offloads because it was important for us to apply some retention based on the policies in countries, because sometimes there are some legal requirements, sometimes there are some business requirements. We also were able to achieve it. Also, we were able to add some extra layer of security. And on top of it, we cut some costs and we achieved less complexity when we combine it into one solution. So all around, we're quite happy with the solution, and I can assure you it works like a charm. At least from my point of view.
Perfect. Well, without necessarily naming, competitors, as we, continue to show what your environment is, and it's certainly not small by any, stretch of the imagination, and it's truly hybrid. What was your prior environment like from a protection perspective? Meaning, how many different kinds of backup solutions were you running to try to handle this kind of infrastructure and environment?
Well, historically, the company was acquiring some other businesses, and that's why we had different backup solutions in place. It was around 5, and indeed, let's do not go into names, but after that, we decided that for an engineer, it's a little bit not fair to be aware of so many different applications. And that's why consolidation it was. And we did not lose any functionality. And with the time goes, I guess I can confirm that Veeam is keeping all the features up to date. And for instance, when we wanted to move to cloud, Veeam was exactly releasing this functionality. When we wanted to backup Kubernetes, there is also this functionality. So I would say, yeah, we're all good.
So interesting. We've been covering on this live stream on our Monday segments now for about a month, different excerpts of some research that we've just recently published called the Data Protection Trends Report. And so if some of the folks haven't seen some of the late live streams lately, this was one of the slides that Jason Buffington and I like to highlight year after year now. And Alec, we've been now showing this exact kind of a slide for 3 years in a row for the same question. I appreciate it might look kind of busy, but it's pretty easy to decompose, which is simply the question is in the middle white there towards the top. Which of the following of these things listed below would drive your organization to change its primary backup solution to a new solution or service? So choose all that apply. Those are the longer, darker green bars, and then we've stacked ranked that by the shorter light green bars of please select which is the most important. And there really are no wrong answers here. We just like to get a feeling for what's going on in the industry. The sample size for this report was almost 3,400. You kind of verbally alluded to some of these things, but do some of the items here on this list, and particularly how they're ranked in terms of most important, do they resonate with you and what the Staples challenges were?
Yes, for sure. Well, first of all, it's always a pleasure to participate in a quiz where there are no wrong answers. But I would say that from my perspective, point number 4 is quite important to improve ROI. Then we really wanted to reduce software or hardware costs. That's absolutely for sure. We wanted to reduce complexity as well. That's crucial for us. We wanted to consolidate to a single solution for backups. Pretty much reading my previous speech. Then
Right.
to move away from legacy hardware solutions, that also was one of our cases. Improve reliability. I would say that pretty much everyone does it. So looking at this list, all those points are important, and some of them are a little bit more important than others. But I would say that, well, I started with my priorities at the beginning.
Yeah, and here's a case of where maybe it is totally okay to mention some vendors and providers by name. You mentioned you wanted to reduce some costs, but you also have infrastructure providers, key partners that Staples works with, and gear, meaning hardware that you've deployed. Anything you can tell us about some of that? I believe that you've got some specific storage solutions in particular that you like to use.
Well, previously, once again, historically, we were using multiple vendors. So, for instance, if some company in the country, they were purchasing Fujitsu, others were purchasing Dell equipment, others CMC, we, again, also decided to consolidate on the hardware as well, same as on backup. And therefore, we started to look for very nice scalable solutions. And that's why we turned into an HP. And while looking at hyperconverged, we tried synergies, we tried simplicities for branch offices, and we became quite a huge fans of them. And I would say that it also helps you to cut on costs and, well, standard, simple infrastructure. That's what we absolutely want, because we are big fans of that keep it straight, simple strategy.
Yeah, I remember you saying that when we spoke the other week. Keep it simple. Don't try to introduce more complexity into an environment. In fact, actively try to drive variance and complexity out of the overall solution, both from a primary and from a secondary perspective. So far with your experience now trying to get a set type of infrastructure, consolidate on one recovery solution, does the organization feel like they're getting what they need? In other words, has the journey been worthwhile thus far for you?
Absolutely. I can only agree with this one. I would say that we started to get way less incidents related to the hardware. We started to get way less incidents related to the restoration of the files. And every time when we're getting them, we're able to resolve them in very timely manner, always within SLA, and it never happened to us that the backup solution was not working as well. So for now, I personally feel, and I truly hope that business also feels that their data is protected.
Outstanding. Well, just looking at some of the research here, just we'll share, but one other data point from that same research, and that was really when we asked the question about what does modern protection or innovative data management look like to you as an individual. And here you can see the same notion of choose the many responses. Those are the longer, darker bars at the top. And then they're stacked ranked again by those lighter green bars when you could only choose one. The thing that always jumps out to me and my colleagues that participated in driving this research, Jason Buffington, Julie Webb, were that cloud jumped to the top of the list. And you could see it in two different ways. The first, or the top at 16%, if you could only choose the most important, was ability to do disaster recovery via cloud service, or what some call DRaaS. And then right behind that, ability to standardize protection of on-prem and infrastructure as a service, software as a service. Does that surprise you, or was that something that your organization was already keen to investigate?
No, it's absolutely not a surprise for me. And I would say that disaster recovery via cloud service, it is going to be, once again, only from my point of view, one of the standards of modern infrastructure in the next years. Because having two classic physical data centers, it's really nice, but it can be quite costly. So if we're talking about one physical location and maybe a virtual location to, replicate crucial services, that might be a way to go. So not surprised, and I am happy that the majority of the architects are with me, because otherwise I wouldn't see it on the list. And standardizing protection on premises, infrastructure as a service, software as a service policies, it's also crucial and important. So I do agree with these points. And for instance, as I am personally a huge fan of the hybrid cloud solution, ability to move workloads from on-premise to cloud, this is also something I was expecting to see maybe a little bit higher on the list, but still it's there, so it's all good.
Yeah, and this is one of those cases where it's helpful to look at both pieces of the response, meaning as I look over to my presentation monitor, it's number 8, which is sort of in a three-way tie for the lower end of the spectrum here in terms of only select one. However, you can see when it choose all that apply, nearly a third of the people said that that's actually something that's relevant to me today. But interestingly enough, up at the top, both in terms of the most important as well as if everybody could choose it, what jumped out was indeed disaster recovery as service to the cloud.
Modern problems require modern solutions.
Yeah, exactly. And my colleague Jason has a good talk track, which is, if something can be easily achieved, if you can actually derive that from many different products or products that you already have deployed, you might not consider that to be modern because it's just something that's already addressed. However, sometimes what modern and innovative is helping you to address those things which are still problems for you or things that you haven't fully solutioned, or at least not yet. So that's why some of those things lower on the list, it doesn't necessarily mean they're less important. It just means the organization or whoever responded to the survey here has more confidence that they could actually achieve that.
Oh, well, all those points, they look quite nice because ability to utilize protection data for secondary purposes, we do have that challenge nowadays as well. We do have our own development teams, and they're happy to use production data in a separate environment. They play with it, make some adjustments and so on. But our CI/CD pipeline is quite modern, and I'm happy that more and more people are over there, 36%.
Yeah, and that actually harkens back to, you mentioned Kubernetes and containers, in passing, and just would like to drill down on where's your organization at in terms of their usage or plans upcoming in the short term for containers?
Oh, well, we are developing a lot of our critical products and we are using containers. Well, in this particular aspect, we try to concentrate them in cloud, but potentially we are also thinking about making it a hybrid solution. I am afraid I am not allowed to name all the applications which we're developing ourselves, but believe me, those are the business critical ones, and containerization is very high on our priority list, and we are not going to get rid of it. It will only grow. So that's why we were quite happy to see that it's possible to back up Kubernetes with the help of Veeam.
It's interesting because another piece or a little bit of research that we also got from the data protection report that we've been sharing some slides from did drill down into Kubernetes and containers. And part of the answer that we talked through recently was a little bit of myth busting, meaning there are some that believe the containers are still in the future, that it's certainly not something that should be ignored, but something that's maybe that's 2023, or that's further away. It's not happening quite yet. And yet, when we talk to people like yourselves, when we look at some of the research results that we've received, for many organizations, containers is maybe going to be more important in the future, but it's already part of the present.
It's definitely a part of our infrastructure. It's already there for, well, pretty much a year. And we trust them that much that we put some critical services over there. Plus, we even use our partners, third-party companies, so they also use containerized applications which we connect to each other, and well, so far it works like a charm, and it keeps people excited because developers, DevOps guys, engineers, they're all excited, to learn all those new thrilling things, and it's a possibility to learn. So containers, from my point of view, crucial. And as I don't know, many years ago, people thought that we will never get rid of tapes.
Yes.
People maybe were thinking that we will never get rid of servers as servers, but now containers are replacing some of the functionality. But I guess, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, apologies. You mentioned tape, and I happen to be I'll say pro tape, or maybe a better way to say it is, I think tape gets picked on in some cases, or actually probably many cases, a little unfairly, especially more modern or more reliable tape. But I do understand how some organizations say they want to move to a different kind of target. They want to be able to leverage maybe the cloud as the ability to fail over to, or to be able to use as sort of an extensible portion of their data center because they can't afford, for at least all of their workloads, to have a secondary site and to be able to have a hot standby, as it were. So while I give my background as being kind of pro tape and still think it has a role to play, what was part of the process for modernizing your recovery solution and really your infrastructure? You went with some HPE gear, you went with Veeam, and you embraced the cloud as well. What were some of the thoughts as it related to sort of a DR, sort of the traditional, let's write the tape, let's have a company come and pick up those tapes every day?
Well, that's an interesting question because obviously we had to do some backup offloads, offsite offloads, and we were using tapes in all the branch offices and in the main data centers. However, at some point, you're getting to the limit, let's call it like this, and we really started to look what can we do. Plus, cloud was already over there, and obviously, there are some challenges like bandwidth, for instance, but from my point of view, in 2022, well, it's a high time to move to cloud solution. If you do multiple copies, you offload to multiple places, chance of data loss is not that big. Because, for instance, having some third-party company attending your branch office or attending your data center every week or every month, depending on your retention schedule, just to pick up the tape, well, that's Not really modern. Well, it does work. Yes, it does have this functionality, but if it's possible to do it digitally and it also works, from my point of view, it's a little bit easier, with a couple of clicks to set up a repository which will be hosting your data for like 3 years, for instance, instead of keeping a bulk of tape somewhere in the dark corner, even as a third-party provider. Well, I would vote for the modern solution, and we implemented it with the help of Veeam, and definitely cannot complain about. So far,
Outs-
sorry,
yeah.
we tried to do a couple of recovery tests. And once again, always was working like a charm. And please don't take it like I'm only complimenting your product, but I'm just trying to be sincere. So if it works, it works. If we would face some challenges, then sorry about it, but that would be my chance to say it, right?
Yeah, and I think it's an important one. I was going to ask you, to the extent you can, can you describe some of the results that you've seen? We've spent a lot of time talking about the environment and some changes that you made, but this is the results, and these were actually also the top features that were highlighted in terms of what would the pain points be, what would make you change solutions, and improving recovery time, recovery point objectives in terms of SLAs, and that reliability success. To date, how's your experience been in terms of, have you actually had to bring back something, and were you able to achieve what you were looking for in the time frame?
Um, yes, for sure. And I would say that this is not only a win of choosing a backup solution, it's multiple factors which are affecting it. Because, first of all, we started to, let me even rephrase it. There are two aspects of it. One is the data protection for servers and for our applications, databases, and so on. And the second one is the data protection and computer literacy of our users. So I believe we did a great job, and now I'm complimenting myself, but I hope I can now. And maybe my boss is looking at it, and he will be happy to hear that, and I will finally get this raise. So we were doing a lot of stuff with the computer literacy of the user. So the accidental restores amount, it dropped dramatically in the last 3 years. Also, when we implemented all our backup and retention schemes everywhere, we were able to get a significant decrease in the restoration requests. So it never happened to us that we had to restore completely a site, maybe a VM or two. And if we're talking about, cloud, yes, sometimes stuff gets deleted, but that's absolutely not a problem to recover it nowadays. So I would say that based on my experience, and I'm 20 years in IT, the last years, our data protection is getting better and better, and the amount of incidents is decreasing. And that also can lead you to a false conclusion that you don't need a backup. And this is no. This is a no-go situation. You definitely need one.
Yeah, and I do want to give, I'm told by our production team in Romania that user, I love this. Jungle Motorsports, great user ID, says tape is a great way to have immutable air-gapped backups. And see if I can hold it. I'll actually hold it in front of me. Here's an LTO cartridge that I have in the office. Like I say, Alec, I still am pro tape for certain use cases. Every technology has its use case. There are no bad technologies. There's no perfect one size fits all technology. I do think that's a good point. Thanks for that comment. Especially if you've already made an investment in tape drives, tape robotics, and it's working well for you, and you are looking for that air-gapped copy, by all means, encourage people to continue to pursue that. At Veeam, we natively integrate with tape. We invest in tape. Version 12 of our product coming out later this year will have more tape capabilities, and of course, we'll have more cloud capabilities. So we definitely see all sides of the spectrum. With that, maybe one closing question for you, Alec, and do want to thank you for taking time out of your day. I know it's later where you're at, especially. If you could name, one or two Veeam features that so far you've been, pleasantly surprised by, or that you're a fan of, what are some of the capabilities that have made an impression on you?
The key ones. I really like replication feature because sometimes we are using this feature to move a lot of our virtual machines from one data center to another. Well, if we talk about physical ones. So if we talk about pragmaticness of that effort, yes, I really enjoyed it. Then, well, I like that there is an encryption on the backup, and well, it's a bit, well, it's a bit difficult to rate all those features because they are, well, all handful in a way. So for me, yes, I cannot just pick up a couple of them. So I can talk about each of them, and well, they do work.
Brilliant. Excellent. Well, thank you very, very much, Alec. Really want to thank you for taking the time, sharing part of your journey, your story. I'll give a couple of shout outs and I guess a sort of a forward commercial here. We've been talking about the Data Protection Trends Report the last couple of episodes. If you're not familiar with that or missed a couple of episodes, feel free to go back and take a look. We do persist those on multiple platforms, LinkedIn, on YouTube. You can download the report at this short URL, VEE.am/DPR22. That just means Data Protection Trends 22. And as we been mentioning hybrid, Alec, we're going to have a hybrid event, Veeam, our first time to returning in person in now a few years. Coming up in May, middle of May, May 16th to 19th, we'll be back in person in Las Vegas for VeeamON 2022. However, we'll still offer a no-charge virtual component for that. We know not everyone is allowed to or may even have the time to be able to travel. So we're going to continue to make that available, and it will be without a charge associated with it. You can see down here, veeam.com/VeeamON is where you can get a little more information on that. And then lastly, I want to give a send ahead from our Friday show. We're going to have our great colleagues Corinne Bissett and Kirsten Stoner from the Office of the CTO give a rundown, kind of a sneak peek on what's coming up in version 6 of Veeam's protection for Microsoft 365. We're actually almost at version 6 of that product right now. We're just on the eve of releasing that. It's the industry's most deployed Microsoft 365 backup solution. I know, Alec, 365 is something that's important to you and your organization. So we're going to continue to rev that product very, very fast, just like the cloud products. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Alec, thank you so much for taking the time. Everyone out there, stay safe, stay positive, and we'll see you on the next live stream. Bye for now.